So, Emma, what are we talking about today?
Multi-births versus single births.
Yeah, so you being an identical quadruplet and me being an only child.
Yep.
This episode is called Multi-births. Welcome back to the Crippin House. It's time to unwind, be a bit silly and chat about parenting. And if you're joining us on YouTube, you also get to follow along with the arts and crafts that we're doing. So if you've got a free moment, maybe your toddler is napping, maybe your baby is asleep on you, or maybe it's the middle of the night, who knows? Join us for the conversation here in the cozy Coverland.
Coverland.
Yeah, we've had a lot of this recently. Again, we've got the problem of our split on, I would call it, blankets.
That's why I was very impressed you called it Coverland.
Well,
I'm getting to him.
I've adopted quite a lot of these expressions. I never know if they're northern or just your...
Or just my crazy family.
Yeah, you know. But now Lily doesn't nap. Often in an afternoon we have our cozy Coverland, as we call it.
Yeah, we do.
Which is where we put a big... duvet out on the floor, get lots of blankets and cushions and just, snuggle in, have a good time.
Lounge about.
Yeah. I'm Elliot, the mathematical one.
I'm Emma. I want to say non-mathematical one.
I thought you might go with that. I'd written down linguistic one.
I was going to go for maybe the more like humanitarian, like somebody who liked the humanities growing up.
Oh, right. Yeah.
If people don't know what that is, that's like...
As in like arts and sciences at like uni, that kind of difference.
Yeah, it was like languages, religious studies, history. They were all humanity.
I always think of them as like the written subjects.
Yeah.
The ones where you write essays.
I'm Emma, the one who likes the writing.
I always find it funny with these because I have a list of like... what do you call them? Like opposites that I think are different between us. And I have a list that I slowly working through for each episode. So I just go with it. And it's interesting to see if you know what the other one is, if you pick up what I'm going for.
I feel like it was a personal slight, like the one who's good at maths and the one who's not.
Oh,
good at maths.
no, I wasn't intended to be like that at all. It's just showing that we have like our brains work very differently.
Very differently.
In the I'm not actually that good at maths, but I have a very mathematical mind in the way that I process things.
And compared to me, you are very good at maths.
Well, that's true. To be fair, I did do maths and further maths at A level, but
he's not very good at maths,
like times tables, absolutely terrible.
Yeah, but that's like something you got to learn.
But languages and writing is definitely your cup of tea, and not my forte at all.
It's the subjects I loved at school, where anything you got to write a big essay for.
Once again, we've got lost on a tangent, but, learn more about us in the process. It's time again to share a parenting achievement. Ding, bing, bing.
Boop, boop, boop.
I feel like we should have a proper,
We
thing
should.
instead of just making up a little thing that probably changes every time.
Maybe it's charming having a little thing that we just do randomly.
I hope that a lot about most of our podcasts,
charmingly
low budget and charming.
Yes.
So this is that moment where we just share those moments that we've all been there, and you've unlocked a thing of parenting where something's gone wrong, or just experiences that are a bit not gone as planned.
I actually had something today because Elliot told me beforehand, have you got one? And it made me think, and I actually had one. So it's one specific time, but it happens a lot, and a lot of parents will know. It's when your child goes to the toilet first, and then you go, oh, while we're here, I'll go on the toilet now. But the toddler, they've been to the toilet, they're done, they want to get out of there. So you're basically begging them to please not open the door and leave you exposed to everybody else outside. And Lily sometimes can be like a gymnast because she can't always work out how to open the door, but she's like half hanging off it.
So the problem with toddlers, they're very crafty at knowing how to open locks and things, and toilet doors are
not difficult enough. I know that's the point.
That's true.
It should be easy for people to get out. But when you've got a toddler, you're like, please say it's like a higher one that she can't reach as well. But it did turn into a parenting actual success. in my panic, I was like, oh, Lily, look, there's a spider in the corner. And if you don't know, Lily loves spiders and snakes. Don't know where she's got this
from. The typical,
from.
Cute and cuddly animals that kids like.
She really likes spiders.
Spiders and snakes.
So she was then looking in the corner going, spider, spider, desperately looking for it, which gave me enough time to have a quick wee and be able to regain my dignity before leaving the toilet. But it was a real touch and go moment of being like, she's like 5 seconds away from opening the door.
Yeah.
And just...
Yeah.
And it's not too bad if you know the toilets are empty, but it's when you know there's a big queue of people.
Yeah.
And you're like...
It depends a lot on the toilet and the setup, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because I've had this as well with Lily. We've both had this experience. My one wasn't that we were in a toilet where opening the door would just open out onto where the taps are and things. It was we were in like a disabled or a child what are they called? Baby changing and / disabled toilet in a pub. So it was like a separate cubicle, and the door would just opened out onto into the room where everyone was eating. So
it's even worse.
Yeah, I was sat on the toilet and Lily was like trying to open the door. I was like, if she manages it, she's going to just fling open the door, and I'm just going to be sat there with the whole everybody. It just.
Just as they're eating their meals.
I wasn't as composed as Emma though, who quickly thought of a good way to distract her, which is normally the best way with a toddler, isn't it? Whereas I was just going, no, Lily, no. Bad parenting from me.
Well, I don't think it was that I was calm. I think my brain was desperately trying to think of something, and it worked.
So if you have a parenting achievement, has something similar happened to you? Have you had the same experience, or whatever it might be, whatever level you've unlocked or parenting low you've sunk to, let us know. If you're watching on YouTube, in the comments, or send us a message or put it in the comments over on our Instagram at don'twakethebaby_podcast. Right, well, grab your cold cup of tea and let's dive into talking about multi-births versus not multi-births. That's not a very good way of expressing it.
Single Pringles.
Single Pringles. I suppose it's not just I mean, we will talk mostly about multi-births, as you are, and about being an only child, because that's my experience. But there's also another category of having siblings.
Which I also have.
You also have. So like 3 categories here.
I think it's like if people have multi-births listening, it might be quite useful to see what I found helpful, what I found it didn't. Do you know what I mean? Growing up.
That's true. So you as a multi-birth, do you want to tell us a bit about that from the beginning? Yeah,
so we were very premature. I've just said to it, I can't remember how long. I think it might be 2 or 3 months. And I was the smallest baby in the hospital, claim to fame of 2 pounds 2 ounces. Although this is a side note, I bonded with my dentist yesterday because he's had a child recently that was 1 pound 1 ounce.
Very small.
Yeah, and he was showing me pictures, and we really bonded over the fact that he really liked that I had been so small and I'm fine now, and it was really, I think, comforting for him to see, like, you end up equals out, you end up, being the same and having the same kind of lifestyle and everything. It's fine. Yeah. Which, side note, but I think it also plays into, like, people get very worried when you're born that little, and we had see-through skin, we couldn't breathe.
You had quite a lot of, like, health problems.
Yeah, we were on breathing machines because we obviously couldn't breathe for ourselves for a long time. And
you came that early because there were so many of you that
there wasn't
you
enough
literally
space
had
for
to
us.
be got out.
Yeah, they were like, there's no more room, we're going to have to get them out.
Yeah.
My sister Becky was starving because we'd been the kind of multi-birth that compete for food. And basically she'd lost the competition. So Mum said, like, when we were being born, she basically didn't see Becky.
Wow.
She was just rushed out. I mean, we all were rushed to, have breathing things on. But she was one that she barely saw because they were so worried about Becky. Turns out, though, she was the only one who was given breast milk. And she is the most intelligent of all 4 of us. So I in a joking way, I always blame my mum, like, oh, if only I'd been given breast milk, I'd be more intelligent.
That's funny. I mean, we should say, you can measure intelligence in different ways. Don't put yourself down, Emma. You're all very intelligent. Just
I know, but she was, when she was at school.
She's the most academic, I suppose.
Yes,
you could maybe say.
She was one of those people who, she could have probably gone to Oxford if she'd wanted to. She was, from a young age, they were like, oh, if she wants to go into that programme, she could. I wasn't given those offers. So in that way, I wasn't as intelligent. And I blame my mother.
Hard. Yeah. Your whole story is just fascinating, isn't it? Being an identical quadruplet. There's very few around.
Yeah.
You've probably not heard of it very much because there aren't many.
No.
There's literally under 20 in the world who are alive at the moment.
Yeah, that's probably true. I think when I looked it up on a database, first of all, the database isn't very accurate because it says we are Scottish, and I think because we're in the north,
you were so far north, they're like, well, they're
They were
basically Scottish.
They must be Scottish. And I don't think that's ever been corrected. So if you look in the database, we're Scottish. We're not. Nothing wrong with Scotland. I actually love it, but we weren't born there. I think when we were born, there was some born in Mexico or somewhere at the same. It's something like that. I really would love to meet others.
As far as we know, there's only one other set in the UK.
Yes, yeah. They're also girls.
Is it worth saying? I get very confused. So there's other sets of quadruplets out there, isn't there?
Yes, yeah. Well, I don't know. I think technically, normally, from what I understood, girls normally survive better.
Oh.
So that's why there tends to be more girls about.
Right.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But they said that's more commonplace.
Yeah. Suddenly going very deep very quickly, but I do know quite a lot of cases where it's quite common with multi-births that you lose one.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, especially because a lot of you are born so small and you could have a lot of problems.
It's quite risky, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry, taking a very kind of sad and serious turn there.
Yeah.
You all survived and very healthy and doing well.
I think it was touch and go. Mum said she used to have a thing, because it was, I'm going to say in the olden days, she'll hate that. There was always
Back in the day.
a minister in the hospital, and she said if they came to your bed, it was bad news. And obviously, we weren't with her. We were all on, the ICU bit.
Right.
So she said she'd be praying, basically, to God, please do not let the minister stop at my bed, because it means it's bad news, something has happened, or you need to say goodbye, or,
Yeah.
So she said that for her, it was just the reminder of death. So she would be sitting there going, please don't come to my bed, which is really sad.
Yeah.
Because that's a really worrying time.
Yeah.
I thought, how horrible that instead of being a thing that they'll be really comforting, it's no, that's a bad sign if they send you the minister.
I'd never thought of it like that.
Yeah, no.
What an interesting perspective.
I don't think they just wander the corridors now like they did, though.
No, I think you're right.
Because I think now it'd be up to the midwife to tell you, but
Or you have to go and see them somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm
but
not sure.
Clearly in the 90s, they were just get the minister to tell them.
Yeah. See, they were the one who delivered the news.
I know. I think they had to be would you like me to pray with you or something? And you'd know it was bad.
Yeah.
Whatever was going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the early stage, which obviously I wasn't aware of, but my mum was very, it was a worrying time for her and dad.
And despite all the joking, there have been health-related-y things that have kind of carried through.
Yeah.
Things like the fact you still have, baby teeth and things.
Yeah.
There's odd little quirks.
Not all my sisters. Of the quadruplets, all of us have baby teeth still because apparently we didn't have enough calcium or something
So strange.
shared between us.
Yeah.
So, this is once again, my new dentist yesterday was like, wow, you've got baby teeth. And I forget I have to explain these things. Because in my head, I'm like, yeah. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's because I'm a quadruplet. And he was going, oh, wow. And that's where we talked about, babies in the ICU and things. And then he was going, you're also missing some teeth. And I was like, oh, yes, some just never came. But obviously there's not a gap. They've just filled in where those were. And he was like, I've never seen that.
There's a lot of stuff like this where medical professionals just find, because it's quite unique, and they just don't understand.
They find it baffling.
I don't think we mentioned it before, but we'll go into a full birth story at some point. But when you were giving birth to Lily,
Yes, yeah.
the people in the hospital would not believe things we told them that were based on your sisters. So we'd say, like, Emma is a identical quadruplet and her sisters all had this reaction when they gave birth.
Yeah.
They all had these things. These are precautions that we think need to be taken.
So there's a certain type of antibiotic that we're all allergic to. I've never had a reaction because I've never been given it. But both my sisters who were given it after birth because they're infections or things, their arms swelled up really badly, or they had really bad effects with it, and they kept saying, oh well, if this happens we'll give you this, and I was going, no, please don't give me that, because I'll have a reaction. And they kept saying, but you haven't had that reaction, and I was going, no, but I'm identical to 2 other people who did have the reaction, so I'm pretty confident I will have that reaction. And we couldn't get through to them and I don't know if it's a procedural thing. Maybe you have to have had the reaction yourself, but I thought common sense would dictate if 2 of my identical sisters have had this reaction, the likelihood is I'm also allergic to this.
Yeah, but it's true, isn't it? Like, medically, there's no reason why it should happen. So I can understand their point of view, but they've not had your lived experience and don't understand that science doesn't explain a lot of the stuff that connects the 4 of you. So, for example, it's weird things like the fact your periods sync up.
Yeah.
Even like...
And none of us live near each other.
Yeah.
I want to clarify that. Well, like, I live closest to my sister at Barnard Castle. That's not close. It's like an hour away. And normally if one of us is pregnant, all our periods go off. So it's like it's a good indicator somebody is pregnant if your period goes crazy.
Yeah.
Because you're like, hey, this isn't
It's like
normal.
your mum often refers to things being witchy.
Witchy,
Just because you seem to have this connection amongst the 4 of you that is just unexplainable in the way you almost know things about each other, or your bodies sync up and do strange things. It's like as children, do you want to explain how you had your own language?
Oh, we did, yeah.
I think that's a bit
That's
more
quite
common with
commonplace,
multibirths.
though. Yeah. And this is another poor worry for our mother. Growing up, we must have been, we were pretty slow at doing everything, I'll be honest, because we were, we didn't pick up English for a long time. We just talked to each other in our own kind of language we'd somehow amalgamated from English and just kind of baby speech. And we'd have our own jokes. Like, I can vividly remember, like, there was a thing about the cat with the very long nose. It was a song we used to sing. And there was something else about an animal that had measles. The cheetah had measles, but in our language that rhymed, the word cheetah and measles. And it was like hilarious to us. And I remember telling Mum this, and she said, looking back, she said she didn't know what the joke was, but she knew there was a joke, because one of us would say this strange thing and we'd all be hysterically laughing. But I think that's quite commonplace amongst multibirths, that they have their own language.
You'll have to tell us if you're listening and you were a multibirth.
Or you have
if you multibirth. You have a twin or others, or if you've had children and have had a multibirth. Then let us know. Are there strange quirks and things like that? I mean, we've talked a lot about you, and I suspect we will continue to talk a lot about you because you're really interesting. My story is much less interesting. Remember to stay tuned till the end of the episode to hear a parenting tip from one of our listeners. If you're on YouTube, you can see how the craft has gone, or, we'd love to hear from you and find out what your experiences are and share with our growing community. You can do that on YouTube, on Instagram, and on Facebook. Join our Facebook community of listeners, which is a group chat where you can connect with us and other parents around Yorkshire, where we are, and beyond. And just, offer mutual support and find things out, connect with other mums and dads. And that would be great. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and click some of the, the buttons, all the good buttons. Leave a comment on YouTube, share it with your friends, do whatever. I don't know, whatever the things are.
All the things.
Yeah, we like that. That's good. You're helping us out. You can find out more about us and find all the links to our social media and everything else over on our webpage. All the links are in the description below or in the show notes. But it's www.kairosmovement.org.uk/Don't Wake the Baby. Shall we move on to talking about kind of growing up then? So away from the baby phase and kind of what the differences are between both our upbringings. I mean, it's quite difficult to isolate the differences between being an only child and being a multi-birth because there's so many other factors at play.
Yeah, true.
You know, our location and, you know, all the rest of it in context of our upbringings. So
a thing your mum tells me is that at nursery you would often make friends with other only children.
Yes, she always
which is interesting.
says this was a thing that I gravitated towards other children without siblings. Did you gravitate to other children, other multi-births?
No, I think we just didn't bother with other people in the nicest way possible. I don't, especially at nursery, Mum said we were really not bothered because obviously we had each other. So to us, it was very, why would I make friends with other people? Like I have 3 friends with me. I'm not saying we were jerks, but we were like...
You had your friendship group, you know,
we
you
were
had your
uninterested,
family.
yeah.
You didn't really need more people.
No.
Like, I think that's carried through as well. Like, you're quite confident and assured, like in, you know, you don't go out searching to find people and make friends and things.
No.
You just kind of, you know.
Quite happy with what I've got.
Yeah. Whereas I've kind of the opposite, I think. And I don't know whether it's down to being an only child, but I've always been quite shy and find it difficult making friends and had quite low confidence, really, growing up.
Yeah, I think it really depends because I know, like, a lot of multi-births, like, so my sister Becky, she's an interesting case study. For a long time, she wouldn't talk. She had the capability, but because she knew we would talk for her at primary school, she would just whisper things in our ear. And I remember, like, some teachers for a long time just never, or the children, never heard her speak. Because she was like, I'll just whisper in Emma or Kirsty or Laura's ear, and they will tell them what I want to say. So it can go both ways.
Yeah, you've almost got that safety blanket with you the whole time in that you can rely on the other 3 to help you out. Whereas
me, Kirsty and Laura, we were like, oh, we feel safe. The others are here, therefore we'll talk. Becky was like, I would prefer for them to talk.
Yeah.
I don't feel confident enough, but I also have these that I can ask them and they will just say something.
I mean, you would think maybe then in my situation, I had no one to fall back on, so I'd have to, you know, rely on myself and get over my issues and speak. But that didn't really work either, though.
But I think it really just depends what kind of person you are, doesn't it, really?
Definitely.
It definitely has an effect, but I would say... And it was nice going to things, and I always knew I'd know people because I had my little tribe with me. So I never had to worry about being alone or no one's going to play with you or...
Again, I don't know that that's really carried through very much in that we're both quite anxious people.
Oh, yeah.
It's not... You'd think maybe you having that confidence of having your family with you the whole time, maybe you would be less anxious. But no, we're both very anxious.
I think I'm less anxious than you.
Yeah, maybe.
But I don't think it's like a huge amount.
Yeah.
But that might just be like a millennial problem that we're quite anxious people.
A lot of this might just be like, you know, growing up as kind of 90s children or millennials, you know. Yeah, that's interesting.
I know a lot of people who are very anxious.
It's probably, you know, a trait of our generation, just a lot of mental health problems. I suppose one of the things that does make a big difference is you grew up with a lot of sisters, and so you're quite keen that, you know, Lily has a sibling.
I'll be honest, I don't want more than one more child. Like,
that's because it's a lot of work.
Parenting's
hard.
And finances and everything. I think 2's kind of my limit, unless we happen to have twins, you know, in the future, in which case it's not my decision.
Yeah.
But...
It was funny, wasn't it? When you were pregnant, the number of like midwives and others who were so excited when they heard you were a quadruplet. They were like so hopeful that you might have a quadruplet or have multi-births.
More amusing, for my first scan because of COVID, Elliot wasn't allowed to go But there's a lot of people were excited that it could be a quadruplet, like I might have quadruplets. There was like 3 people in the room. And I was like, they were so disappointed that I wasn't. And I was just really relieved.
Yeah.
I was like, even 2 seemed too much at that point. I just wanted 1 child.
Those of you who have, multi-births or just multiple children, really, you guys, like you've chosen to do this. So it's even more crazy to my mind. At least with multi-births, sometimes it's a surprise and, you can't control that.
Decide it.
But yeah, I've total respect because it's definitely hard work with
I
one.
think particularly multi-births because they're the same age.
Thinking about what your parents went through raising 4 of you, all of the same age, all at the same time.
Yeah, this is why this is a common joke amongst my sisters that my parents think all of our children are spoiled.
Yeah.
But that's because, like, we only have 1 currently. My other sister only has 1. They're only, like, the top, like, my 2 other sisters only have 2 children each. And obviously you have more resources and time and basically money to spend on those children. So compared to the way we were raised, it is quite spoiled. But we have to try and explain that's not abnormal. It's just you couldn't give us that time and attention and, like all those toys and things because like it's impossible.
Your style of parenting definitely changes, doesn't it, depending how many children you have. And yeah, I mean, I was an only child and I was definitely spoiled in my upbringing, both with stuff and, my parents were quite strict, but equally quite generous. Whereas your parents didn't really have a choice just to survive.
No. Yeah.
They had to be quite strict. The same would be true now, wouldn't it, if you've got multiple children. And when we have another child, it will change things in what we're prepared to do, what we expect, the money we spend.
Well, let's face it, Lily's going to have a shock. Because right now it's kind of, most things are within our limit. If she really wanted a day out or something, it's kind of fine.
And my parents used to always say growing up, you can have this, we do this, it's fine. I don't know what the point of saying it to me was, but they'd say, if there was more than one of you, we wouldn't be able to do this. I'd go, great, okay.
Probably to make you appreciate it.
Yeah.
But you'd been brought up that was just normal. You're like, well, yeah, of course you guys are going to do that.
I don't know what you want me to do about it, but sure, if there was a theoretical other children, you wouldn't be able to do that. Okay, sure. I mean, the other thing we haven't touched on is that as an identical quadruplet, you have a certain amount of fame in your local area, at least.
Very localised.
Well, I mean, yeah, localised, but I think it extends across quite a lot of the northeast.
One time we did meet, we were on holiday in Rhodes or somewhere with my parents and my sisters, and I remember it's before you, long before.
Okay.
He was
I was trying to think of a holiday, but no, it was before me.
Before you, we were children. We went to Corfu, that was it. And somebody came up to us and they were like, "Oh, are you the quadruplets from Barnard Castle?" And I remember we were like, yes, we are. But we were amazed that someone in Corfu, like another random British tourist, had come up and been like, "I know you guys, I've seen you in the local paper." And we were like, yeah, that's us.
Yeah, it's true. Well, when we lived over in Cumbria, there were people that had heard of you. I mean, we were, even though we're in a different county, we were only half an hour away.
Half an hour away from where we grew up.
But when you were giving birth, some of the midwives had heard of you.
Some of the midwives had heard of me.
Your fame spreads.
to a northern area. We're relatively famous.
Yeah, I mean, you were in the paper as a child.
We were in the paper.
Most of your achievements, they were like, the quadruplets have done this, now they've done that.
People might not like this, but like you go through a chubby phase growing up, and there's like all those pictures of like, oh, guy quadruplets do this, and I'm like, did you have to put a picture in the paper when I looked like that? I was like a cringy kind of tween, gonna be a teenager, and just that's immortalised somewhere.
Yeah. Well, there's quite a lot of that. I mean, even when we got married, it went in your local paper.
It did.
And when you had your birthdays, like big birthdays, they were like, I mean, what's that like for you? I mean, it's like being celebrated for something that's not any of your control. It's it's just who you are.
Growing up, I was really annoyed by it because I was like, I want to be well known for something I've done. And then I was growing older, I'm like, I'm not really going to be known for anything. Might
Don't
as
say
well
that.
be.
You never know.
Might as well be for being a
You might become a
quadruplet.
famous linguist, a famous video game
name
translator.
one famous linguist or video game translator.
We went to that place in Scotland where there was a monument to a translator. Do you remember?
Yes.
Yeah, and we were like, look, this is the fame you
his
can.
name though?
I
You see?
had no
This
idea.
is also a common, complaint amongst linguists, is that we're not credited with anything.
Yeah, it's a very thankless task,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And personally, I don't mind because I don't actually think I'd want to be
Yeah,
famous.
you don't seek the limelight.
No. But I see the point in that a lot of translators feel like they've done really good work and they're not really like thinged.
I mean, didn't that happen when you were children? Wasn't there some brand that approached you to do like a sponsorship kind of thing?
We did do child modelling at one point for
Yeah.
a certain. It was like a wedding brand that did dresses and things. So we got to wear a lot of bridesmaids' dresses, and that was, as a child, we found that really fun because we got to keep a lot of the clothes. I remember once again, their mum was worried because she had to dress up, and she's always like been worried about her weight, and she looked beautiful, but at the time she was like, I don't really want to be in one of the photos. So she was really sweet about it. But as a child, that was really fun because it was like a one-off and we got to wear pretty dresses, and I actually enjoyed that. There was another time a TV crew, I think Channel 4, asked if they could do a documentary over Christmas. And I ruined it, basically. Everybody else wanted to do it. And Mum did the thing that was very fair. If one of you doesn't want to do it, you don't have to do it. And I always said, I don't want to do it. Because I think we must have been like 15 or something.
Yeah.
I thought they'd make it look freaky. Like, it'd almost be like a sideshow. Isn't it weird? And I wouldn't want...
That's a difficult age, isn't it, to have your lives on show like that, to be like, look, here are the quadruplets.
And I at that point, I think I was already cynical about media. And I just didn't want people in our house. I was like, it's going to be Christmas. I want to have Christmas, comfortable in my pajamas and...
From an outside perspective, it seems very obvious that being a quadruplet and a multi-birth means that you're a very tight-knit family. You know, family is very important
Definitely
to all of you. And it's quite a shock, for me being an only child when I first met Emma.
This.
And I was introduced to Emma's family. There's just little old me and my parents.
Yeah.
And suddenly I get introduced to a really close family with...
And we're quite
6
boisterous.
sisters, yeah. And I did not know what I'd let myself in
and
for.
this was me telling them beforehand, please be quiet. And he's not used to a load of noise and people. And that was them on their best behaviour.
It was definitely a shock.
When you first met
when
them.
we first started dating, I've just reminded me, and I've just remembered how everyone used to ask me. They were like, "Oh, do you know which sister you're dating? Like,
He
you
found
won't
it
get
very
confused."
annoying.
And I was like, "Yes, I know which one's Emma."
He was like, I'm not an idiot.
I'm not going to get confused. They look different.
Yeah. That's true. A lot of people asked you that.
They found it so funny.
They did.
They just
He
constant
did.
question.
Can you tell he didn't find it funny at all? It's what I have to live with.
The only time was sometimes on the phone.
Yeah.
With certain expressions, some of you you take a moment to be like, now which?
Yeah, who is that?
Who's speaking to me on the phone?
Often when I listen back to the podcast, I sometimes think I sound like Becky.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's weird. Because I don't normally notice that.
As you probably know, this podcast that you're listening to comes from us and is in partnership with the Kairos movement, which is a Methodist project. We're Christians and Methodists, but the idea here is just we're doing something we love. We want to share experiences and join up parents, around Yorkshire and beyond to form community, really. We're not here to ask you to come to church, but just to, make you aware that some of the funding for this podcast and other support and stuff comes from the Methodist Church and from the Kairos movement, which we're a part of and we like, and we think you might like it too. So if it is of interest, do go check it out. It's all over on our webpage, which is www.kairos.org. kairosmovement.org.uk/don't wake the baby.
But I've sort of a good list what I didn't like being a multi-birth growing up.
What didn't you like?
So this is a teaching point for other people. When people used to refer to us as they.
Yeah.
That really got to me. And I remember at one point I told my own mum off for this. And afterwards she was really apologetic. But we'd gone into this soap shop and they'd given us some soap. And one of my sisters thought it was food, so tried to eat it. And my mum, they just threw a comment, oh, they thought it was food, isn't that funny? And as a 6-year-old, I was very insulted that she'd used they. I was like, A, I didn't do that. But B, we're not a one-body thing. We're each our own person. And obviously it's something you just naturally do when there's a lot of you.
There's a group of you. So you often, you refer to
so,
you
it wasn't
all as
her
a group.
fault, but after that, she really tried hard to be like, this person has done this, and that person did that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's a specific example where it was about one person.
Yes.
And they referred to all
I think that's
of you.
what annoyed me.
That's what annoyed. But there are other things that I know equally annoyed you that maybe are less obvious in things like giving presents to all of you.
Yeah. And once again, it sounds like a really stupid criticism, but I didn't like it when we'd all get the same present. Because I'd be like, well, you don't know any of us because we don't all like the same things. And that, once again, sounds ungrateful because the person had just been like, I'll solve arguments by doing this. But we were very good. I think Mum had instilled from an early age, if that's your toy, you don't have to share with anyone. It was the opposite to what they normally do, what we try and do with Lily, you need to share. Mum was very you're your own person. That is your toy. Do not feel the need to have to share it with your other sisters because that's yours. So I was very much I don't like what she likes and she doesn't like what I like. So the fact you've got us all the same present just shows you don't really know what I like or really care.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can see why someone would do it, but also it's... You
and once again, sounds ungrateful, but growing up, it annoyed me.
Yeah. No, understandably.
Yeah.
And the worst crime, it would be just buying one present for all of you.
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't even be bothered to get something for... And I understand, there's 4 of you. It's quite pricey to get each person a present.
I wouldn't have minded if it was, sweets or something. But
just
it's
something little.
Yeah, if it's something no, you have to share this one thing. I'm well, I don't want to.
Once again, it's treating you as a single entity, a group. And it's no, we are individual people.
We're individual people. We have different likes. I don't want to share this one toy with everybody.
What did you think of because I know with you and with, I think, quite a lot of multi-births and even siblings, really. How did you find the, colour coding as children? So you had a set colour.
We were colour-coded for... Mum was very good. She always dresses different from a very young age because I think there was somebody really good in the hospital that basically said, from a young age, you need to make them independent. So you need to be these are your clothes, they're different, you're not all dressed the same all the time. Which would be tempting, it'd be cute, but... Unless we were going to a wedding or something, we were never dressed the same. And we were colour-coded in the hospital because otherwise they wouldn't know who was who.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they would me because I was ridiculously small, but...
I still like the concept that your parents named you and then there could have very feasibly been a mix-up at some point and you ended up with a different name.
Especially because for a while we were just guy 1, guy 2, guy 3, guy 4. That's what they were put on the hospital chart as.
Wow.
So if anyone doesn't know, that's our surname originally was Guy.
Yes, your maiden name.
Yeah. They had different coloured string. So mine was purple. Laura was yellow, Becky was blue, and Kirsty was red. And so that kind of became our colours. Until we had a Shirley or Sheila. There was a lady who looked after us, and I became her favourite. I think because I was the smallest, so obviously cutest.
Runt of the litter.
Runt of the litter. That's what we like to say. And she really liked the colour green. So for a while, she would buy me a lot of green things. So that slowly half became my colour of green or purple. But no, I know it sounds weird, but I didn't mind being assigned a colour so much. I mean, I guess I was quite young, so as I got older, I picked my own clothes, but that didn't matter too much. I kind of liked that I had a colour that I knew was mine. As like a toddler, you're like, great, this colour means my thing. That colour means their thing. It's very clear.
Really interesting. I mean, this is a whole range of things just that didn't happen in my life because there was no need for any of it, you know.
Bet you could have as much orange juice as you wanted.
Yeah. And could wear any colour I wanted, you know. That's just interesting.
At secondary school, people would often call us Miss Guy, the teachers, because they weren't sure which one we were.
Oh.
So I'd be like, oh, excuse me, Miss Guy. And in my head, I'd be like, you don't know who I am. And once again, difficult for the teachers. But, like, it would annoy me because I'd be like...
Yeah. I mean, are we allowed to say, but there's perks that come with this as well, in that you were able to impersonate each other on occasions.
Yeah. Definitely. I want to say... I never actually did this, just to stay out of trouble. But theoretically, some of my sisters, if they couldn't, let's say, pass a test, maybe they switched with another person who could pass a test in a certain subject, and no one would know.
Yeah, how interesting. What sort of age are we talking about here with these tests?
We were in secondary school.
Oh, okay, very good. Yeah, all theoretical.
It's all theoretical. But I didn't. But to be fair, I just passed my own subjects, and actually, it was very challenging for me.
I remember at uni as well. Some of your lecturers would get confused because Becky also went to the same university.
Yeah.
Again, getting you muddled up.
I'm trying to think if there's any other negatives growing up. I think one of the negatives was teachers would often expect you to be as intelligent as your sisters. So.
I think this is a common complaint, isn't it? But
I think it's about other siblings as well.
I was going to say, not just multi-births, but siblings being, especially if you're, not the firstborn, to then be compared to the person who came before you, especially in school.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of that,
So a lot of people would be like, oh, well, you're... And once again, I don't want to be mean because I think the teachers were generally trying their best and they just couldn't understand. But they would be like, oh, well, your sister can do this. And in my head, I'd be like, yeah, my sister's very good at maths. I'm not very good at maths, so I just can't understand. And it would make you feel a lot, like, worse because you knew they had high expectations of you and you couldn't meet that expectation. So
it is interesting, though, isn't it, that... you are all different, you have different gifts and abilities, but then there are also things that tie you together. Like, you all seem to have a natural ability with languages.
Yeah.
And you've all worked and done stuff in care at one point or another. Interesting, isn't it? And we discuss it quite a lot sometimes, is how much of who you are as a person today is because of, being a multi-birth and how it compares to your sister's lives, but how much is your upbringing compared to genetics.
Also, like, we all love history, but that's because Mum watched history documentaries all the time. And Elliot now knows I love documentaries and he hates them.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something, some things are just instilled in you kind of growing up. And some stuff, like, I think is just natural.
I feel like I should say something about my childhood by me. I don't have stories of siblings and, I think most noticeably... things like Christmas were very different in my household compared to your household, which was a hustle and bustle of, a huge family coming together, loads of people. Whereas my family is just me and my parents.
But I think it'd be different if you had like close cousins and things.
Yeah.
So like, I always think even with Lily, we normally have like Becky and her family come over for Christmas. So even right now, it's kind of, there's other kids around and stuff. I think if you had a closer family overall, you maybe would have been.
But again, I think here's the difference because it'd be interesting to hear from people. I don't know how close people normally are with their cousins.
Yes, that's true.
In your family, cousins are very close because you as a family and you as sisters are close. And particularly amongst the four of you, as quadruplets, your children are going to end up being close. Going back to your question from eons ago, what are the things that I disliked about growing up as an only child? Was that your question for multi-births?
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't really thought of an answer, to be honest. I just thought, considering you've answered it, I should probably have a stab at it too.
Yeah. I remember you saying you'd go to like some family friend's house and you wouldn't want to leave because it was so much fun, like being with other children and playing. And I think the thing that factors into this, so your parents were like my parents and they were older when they had you. So they
definitely.
couldn't be as playful and as,
Yeah.
active running around.
But I suppose with you, like, you always had a set of family and friends at home to play with. So, like, going home from play dates and stuff, is not quite the same as, for me,
True.
that was like, I don't have this at home. I get to play with these children and have a sort of fun that I wouldn't encounter anywhere else. So, like, there's a lot of things that I never did a lot of. So, like, board games and playing games that require more than one person.
Yeah.
I played a lot of, like, Lego and things, and I did stuff with my dad and whatnot. But things that are, like, kids do together.
Yeah. Whereas when I played board games with you, you would always go, I've never played this. And I was like, really?
Yeah. I didn't have anyone to play it with.
No,
How would I have done it?
Yeah. I know what you mean, though. This is why I'm keen for Lily to have a sibling, because I think it's nice to grow up playing things and, having like a energetic little family.
I mean,
around.
the flip side is, without a doubt, I got to have experiences and things that were just impossible
far
for you.
More.
Yeah, I got to go places and do things, and not just because my parents had the money to do it, but because, as with their expression, they could do it because there was only one of me.
Yeah.
And
well,
because,
even travelling with more than one kid has got its complications.
Like, you didn't travel abroad for a long time.
A long time.
I can fully understand. It would be almost impossible with...
It'd be crazy. 4
of you, yeah. Whereas I first went abroad, I think, when I was about 2. And then from about 5 or 6, we went every year somewhere.
Yeah. Or I think we had to wait till we were about 11.
Yeah. And we did lots of UK holidays as well. Trying to think what are the things that I got as a advantage as being an only child.
Well, I think this is the thing. You probably would generally be more intelligent. Firstborns generally are, because people can give more time and focus and energy onto
more
that
one-to-one
child.
time. Yeah, yeah.
And my parents were quite lucky that we were, well, we weren't all, rather. We all did our homework, but we weren't all motivated. But, it's kind of you wouldn't get that extra help that a child one-on-one's going to get. Well, I want to first say, we've made it sound like having an only child's bad-ish. And I want to say, it's fine. You can, I think you just have to sometimes put more work in to making it energetic and fun and.
And we're already experiencing this where we're having to put more effort into things like sharing and things like being strict about stuff, because we know that we can be generous with our time. We're happy to
play silly games for hours.
Yeah, and like even things like bedtime and stuff, we flex a lot more because we know we have capacity to with one child. And I know things will change if we have more children, but almost being aware of that and trying to do a little bit more to make sure Lily doesn't grow up feeling spoiled or,
And to realise she's not at the centre of the world. Like, she's the centre of our world, but she has to understand that doesn't mean she gets her way all the time with everything she wants. Because she often looks very confused at you when she's like, but I want this thing. Why won't you do that? And that might just be a common toddler thing, but I think because she has nobody else to share with often, she's like, well, of course this is mine.
When I was young, I felt a bit like there weren't that many only children, in that quite a lot of people I knew, most people had brothers and sisters.
I'll be honest, I don't think I knew any only children growing up.
Wow.
Like at school, all the children I knew had siblings, older or younger. There was one child I knew who was an only child. But that's what I mean, it was very odd.
Yeah.
Where I think nowadays it's more commonplace.
Yeah.
Because I know quite a few people who are like, we're having one and that's it.
Yeah. I can't remember the stats. I'm sure there is evidence out there. So you can correct us if we're wrong.
You can look it up.
I feel like the trend is that people are having less and less children.
Well, I think it's not as viable when both parents are working.
Yeah, and cost of living and all sorts of other factors. If it wasn't for our experiences growing up that kind of make us want Lily to have a sibling, I think we would seriously consider whether we had another one or not.
Yeah.
Because
I think it's purely based on our basically it's purely based on what we think would be best for Lily.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
From both our own experiences, I loved having siblings, and he really felt like he missed having a sibling.
Yeah.
I think that's when we're generous, but we're selfish in that we're like, we think this is what is best for her, is to have another one.
Yeah.
Which seems like we're like, oh, but it's best for her, but it's us deciding. But I think this is a problem. If you've grown up in a close family, you kind of want to replicate that when you have a family. So for me, I'm always like, oh, I would love her to have another sister, like a sister.
Yeah.
Which once again, I know I can't decide, she might have a brother, but I kind of almost replicate my own experience and be like, it would be nice for her to have a sister.
We've come to the end of another episode here in the cozy Coverland.
That's
it. I remembered.
I could see his eyes panicking.
Yeah.
What are we in?
Where are we today? Of course, it's all imaginary, but you get the idea.
Yeah, it's not. They'd be more worried if you forgot where you were and it was around you.
I've literally no idea where I am.
Where am I again?
I hope you've enjoyed listening. As we've said, do share with other parents you know, click all the buttons and stuff. Send us your feedback. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
What do you think of the show? What can we do to improve?
If we've been insensitive in some way.
Yeah, if you disagree with us.
Be like, that was out of order. I'll be like, okay, sorry.
You can go and get back to whatever you are up to now, whether it's sleeping, walking the dog, pramming, as we used to call
pramming,
it. Going out on a walk with your baby and enjoy the rest of your time. Listen to another episode from us.
Yeah.
That's a good option. Just
Why not?
putting it out there, If you've listened to them all already, you could just listen to them all again.
And there's bound to be another one out soon.
Hopefully, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you never know when you listen to this.
Yeah,
if it's like
true.
in the future or I was going to say in the past, but that doesn't work.
Yes, go back in time when none of them were done. Then you won't be able to listen to any. I'm sorry.
Trailing off as usual. Anyway, God bless, sleep well, and don't
wake the baby.
wake the baby. Wait, shh.